Hey there. My name is Amy Nielsen, and I'm a literary agent at the Purcell Agency. Thank you for joining me for How to Craft a Best-Selling Picture Book Series. I apologize in advance for the sound of my voice. The same gunk that probably has gone through many of your households has gone through mine. We're all at the tail end of it, but I think I'll be able to get through this with you today. So, to be fair, I have never written a best-selling picture book series. However, I was a youth librarian for 20 years, so I've purchased hundreds of them over the years. And as an agent, I have sold picture book series. And I've done a ton of research in this area as far as how it fits into the publishing world. And I hope any aspiring picture book authors will take something away from this and maybe can turn a standalone title that you have into a series or craft one from the beginning. So we're going to talk about two different types of picture book series. One is going to be character driven and one is going to be concept driven. And there are some crossover between the two, but we want to make a distinction. So why should you craft a picture book series? What's the difference in a standalone title versus a series? Let me show you some interesting information. So, this morning I looked at the New York Times bestsellers list for picture books, and this is what I saw. Number one, Little Blue Truck's Valentine. Number two, Love from the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Number three, Grumpy Monkey Valentine Grossout. Number five, How to Catch a Lovosaurus. At number seven, Chicka Chicka Love You. And at number nine, Love from the Crayons. That is 6 out of the 10 New York Times best-selling picture books, part of a series. And Little Blue Truck's Valentine, I looked up some more information on that one. That one came out in 2020. And here it is back on the New York Times best-selling list at number one. I think I read that it's held 52 weeks, not consecutive, but 52 weeks at number one. Because a lot of these books, like right now, it's close to Valentine's Day when I did this recording, are marketable moments. Every year come Valentine's Day, parents are looking for things to give to their children during the holidays, during different times of the year, like the first day of school. So a lot of these series hit some of those marketable moments. And let's talk a little bit about how to come up with an idea for a picture book. So this is just going to be like a little brainstorming that I did, and then we'll go into the two different types. So let's say you're an author, you write picture books, and you've come up with an idea about a child monster learning manners. So just an idea floating around in your head. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the How Did Dinosaurs Say Goodnight, but this will be specifically about manners. It's something that I am always looking to teach my own children is about manners. So I've got this concept, this idea. I want to teach kids manners, even brainstormed a title, Even Monsters Need Manners. So that's just starting with an idea of something that you could turn into a picture book series. Or maybe a character pops into your head. For example, an overly excited monster. Now, when thinking about characters for picture book series, you want to think about characters that are compelling, relatable, quirky, weird, someone that's really going to be memorable. So if I have an overly excited monster, that could be very memorable. Or maybe you come up with an idea for a setting. For a picture book series. Maybe you decide that there's going to be a different setting in every book. Maybe you want a setting that feels like home. So for example, now let's using our monsters idea. So a young monster learns manners at home, in a restaurant, at school, at the dentist, during Halloween, etc. So you could take that one idea and put it in all these different marketable moments. So we've got our idea. Now let's talk about the formula for getting it right. And this is going to be, we're going to divide into those two different thought processes, one character driven and one concept driven. So we're first going to talk about character driven. So if you are writing a character driven picture book series, you are going to focus on the character's personality and emotional journey drive in each story. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. And I will have some very specific examples at the end. So in a character-driven, the first thing that you're going to do is to introduce the character and establish a distinct personality and quirk. Kind of like we were talking about our monster. Our monster's overly excited. But let's look at some real-world examples. In the series Pete the Cat is cool and never lets anything bother him. And in Mo Willems' The Pigeon series, the pigeon is dramatic and always wants something he cannot have. So that establishes those personalities. The second step is to present a small conflict or a challenge, something that disrupts the character's world. So in Pete's Groovy New Shoes, I can't remember the exact title of that book, but one of the Pete the Cat books is about him getting a new pair of shoes. So Pete's shoes change colors when he steps in things. And in the Pigeon book, where he wants to drive the bus, he really, really, really wants to drive the bus, and he keeps getting told no. The third part of a character-driven series is to show the character's reaction. So this is the heart of the book that comes from how the character responds. That could be humor, resilience, curiosity, etc. So Pete the Cat, Pete stays groovy and doesn't let it bother him. And the pigeon throws a hilarious hyperbolic tantrum. Step 4 is to repeat the pattern. So the character faces variations of the challenge, reinforcing their personality. For example, Pete's shoes keep changing color, but he keeps singing his song. In the pigeon story, the pigeon tries different arguments to get what he wants, but still with the same result. And number 5 is a satisfying ending with a character payoff, either a small win or a lesson learned without being preachy. So for Pete still loves his shoes no matter what the color. And for the pigeon doesn't get to drive the bus, but now he wants a puppy. So he's got a whole new shiny object in the next story to chase after. So the series potential for character-driven is readers return because they love the character's personality and how they handle new situations. Additionally, parents return because they know these characters and they feel safe giving their child money for the Scholastic Book Fair, knowing that if they buy another book in the series that they already have, that it's going to be something that they enjoy and it's already parent approved. So for example, some other character-driven stories would be Fancy Nancy, she's always fancy, Amelia Bedelia, she always takes things literally, and Olivia the Pig is always creative. So despite the situations, those characters still have those signature personality traits. Now, branding for a picture book series is like super important. Probably one of the most important parts of writing a picture book is the branding. And even though you as the writer, if you're not the author illustrator, there will be a team that is going to handle most of the branding, but a lot of times you get a seat at that table. And you also want to make your story, the series, cohesive enough and easy enough that the branding comes easily. Like it just makes sense in how this branding should look. So for example, some of the things to consider: bold, consistent title treatment. So the title's going to look similar on every book. You walk into Target, you can tell immediately it's another book in the same series. A signature color palette, or even if it's not a color palette, similar colors used. We'll talk about that when I show you the examples. And repeatable character framing, like where does the character appear on the page and how? So now let's look at some fun examples. So love Grumpy Monkey. And if we look at the title treatment, you can see that his name is large, chunky, textured, slightly distressed, because that's how he is. And the character's name is the brand. The subtitles change with the typography, but not the character's name, making it a very, very constant or consistent title treatment. As far as the colors, the color palette for the character himself is consistent, but notice that the background kind of changes based on the subtitle of what the story's about, but it's just very bold and simplistic, showcasing the character as opposed to a busy background. And then the character framing, it's always a close up on his face and his eyes, the expression, kind of indicative of what the new story is going to be was going to be about. So, the branding here is emotion forward, character as a logo, expressive, bold, and just, completely. You can see that from any of these books. You could pick them out in a bookstore and know they were the same part of a series. So now let's look at another one. So I love Mo Willems' books. When my 10-year-old son was younger, we had like all of them. They're such fun reads. And again, the branding here is just spot on. The title treatment is kind of chaotic typography. The title often feels like it's integrated into a joke or integrated into dialogue. The color system here is also very similar, very bold, simplistic, singular color background, highlighting the fact that these stories are character driven. It's about this particular character. And as far as like the framing, he's always, you can always see his whole, well, for the most part, you can see his whole body, and he's very prominent. With the one that you see where there's another character on the page, there's a little bit more of a shared space, but for the most part, you see that long neck and that big giant eye, and it's just so recognizable. I love the one where he needs a bath. That's super cute. So the brand takeaway here is similar to the Grumpy Monkey. It's minimalistic, bold, joke forward, and just so much fun. Okay, now let's switch to concept driven. So a little bit of a different focus here. Instead of focusing on a character, we're focusing on a theme, a lesson, structural patterns that repeat across, and with structural patterns that repeat across all books. So the titles here could be pattern phrases or concepts with a twist. So the approach to writing a concept driven is going to be different than a character driven, even though we're going to have a little bit of crossover. So the first thing you want to do is establish a core concept. So the series revolves around a learning theme, pattern, or question. So a few months back, one of my clients sent me a manuscript that she had written, and it was also main characters were monsters, and it was monsters on a plane. And when I read it, I thought I would love to see this expanded as a series where monsters are taking a child to learn how to first time on a plane, or first time on a train, or first time at a theme park. So using these monster characters to almost, you do like social stories, if you understand what that is. My youngest son is autistic, and we used a lot of social stories when he was younger, but it's basically a way to release and reduce anxiety and teach a child what to expect from a new experience. So I went back to my client and said, would you be willing to expand upon this? And so she did. So we have like 5 in the series that's out in submission right now, and it's different monsters each time, taking kids through a new experience. So that's kind of what that concept driven is like. So let's look at a couple others. So series. So if you give a mouse a cookie, what's the concept there? Cause and effect. So across all of the if you give a stories, there's a cause and effect logic. The crayon books is all about colors and emotions. So The Day the Crayon Quit was the first one. All about they're using their colors to express their emotions. The second step is to set up a predictable structure, so readers know what to expect in every book. So in all of the if you give a stories, and to give a mouse a cookie, for example, if you give him a cookie, he'll ask for a glass of milk. If you give him a glass of milk, he'll ask for this. If you give him this, he'll ask for that. And that structure continues predictably. And the Crayon Quit stories, each time each crayon writes a letter explaining how they feel. Part 3 is that pattern then needs to escalate in a fun way with playful twist. So for example, like we talked about before, the mouse keeps asking for more things, creating this hyperbolic loop. For the crayons, each crayon's letter adds personality and humor to the story. And number 4 is you want to bring it back full circle. So the ending connects back to the beginning or reinforces the lesson. For example, the mouse ends up back with the cookie at the end of the story, and the crayons resolve their issues and return to drawing. And the reason why this type of a series potential is popular is because readers return for the structure and theme, not necessarily a single character. For example, in the How Do Dinosaurs Say Goodnight, there was an old lady who swallowed a. Kids return to those stories because of that predictable structure. We see those dinosaurs doing things they're not supposed to be doing and learning how to do it right. And we see all these different things this old lady is swallowing that no one should be swallowing. So some examples. Here's the How Do Dinosaurs Say Goodnight. And in this series, each book explores a different childhood behaviors with a cast of dinosaur characters, and the names of the dinosaurs are hidden like little Easter eggs inside the books, which my son really enjoyed when he was younger. But I liked these because, kind of like the monster books that I asked my client to write, each of these go through something that all children experience for the most part. One of the ones that I loved with my son was How Do Dinosaurs Stay Safe? Because there were sometimes he didn't understand the dangers that could be present in some, simple behaviors, such as, walking outside and not looking across the street. So that book teaches some of those simplistic skills while also being funny. I mean, you've got this giant dinosaur on like a little teeny slide, doing things that human children should do. So that hyperbolicness to it can help make those themes that maybe wouldn't be as fun for a child to learn, but puts it in a humorous context. So in character and concept driven, sometimes we have some that are both. So I'm going to show you an example of that. So the settings may change, new characters may come in and out, new situations, but something remains the same. So we're going to see an example of that. Little Blue Truck. Probably a lot of you, if you've had young children, are familiar with this series, or if you're a picture book writer, I'm sure you're familiar with it. So this is kind of an example of one that kind of hits both. So in each story, there is a new setting, there's new situations, there's new characters, but Little Blue is always there. And when we look at the branding of this, it's very similar, as we talked about before. The typography is very similar. Little Blue Truck is always front and center, and based on the settings of these are a little more detail oriented, but still pretty simplistic. So, for Halloween, we just have a few pumpkins there, and you can tell what that story is about. Christmas, he's got some Christmas trees in the back of his truck. So this is a very well done character and concept driven story. So in a lot of, especially the character development, one thing that you can avoid is character development. So the characters typically remain the same. Pete's always groovy. Olivia's always fancy. Or Nancy's always fancy. Olivia's always creative. So the character really doesn't have an arc over the course of the series. So that way, kids consistently get that same character that they really, really care about. But what you can't avoid in all picture book series, which we've talked about, is the branding is so, so, so important. And you as the author begin that journey with the character, consistent traits, same voice, with the concept, theme, tone, consistent per book, titles following a pattern. Merchandising options should be easily concepted. We had dinosaur plushies from How Do Dinosaurs Say Goodnight. We had Little Blue Truck plushies from Little Blue Truck. And as parents, you purchase those things to go along with those picture books because your kids love them. And so make your picture book series easily concepted for the merchandising options that could go along to add to that series. And a lot of times we have those repeated phrases or recurring elements. Pete's always groovy. So you want to think about that as you're crafting your picture book series, best selling. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of very quickly walk through this template that I created for you. So on one side, it is character-driven picture book, and the other side is concept-driven. And I've given many of the same examples that I've used here. And for character-driven, there's a place for you to write your character's name, the situation or challenge. There's a Number one, introduce the character, establish a distinct personality and quirk. And so there's some examples and then a place for you to put your character and their quirk. Two, present a small conflict or challenge. Something disrupts the character's world. There's two examples and there's a place to put what disrupts your character's world. Three, show the character's reaction. The heart of the book comes from how the character responds: humor, resilience, curiosity, etc. There's a couple of examples and a place for you to put how your character responds. Four, repeat the pattern. The character faces variations of the challenge, reinforcing their personality. There's a couple of examples and a place for you to put how you're going to repeat the pattern. And then five, there's a satisfying ending with a character payoff, either a small win or a lesson learned. A couple of examples and a place where you to put how your character has a small win or learns a small lesson. And then there's some other notes at the bottom to help you brainstorm additional titles, and then how to pitch that to an agent. And for concept driven, as let's revisit this one as well. The focus is a theme, a lesson, or structural pattern that repeats across all books. So there's a place for you to establish a core concept. This series revolves around learning a theme, pattern, or question. There's a couple of examples and a place for you to put what is your core concept? What are you trying to teach throughout your series, or what's the pattern? Set up a predictable structures. Number two, readers know what to expect in every book. Couple of examples. What is your predictable structure? Three, escalate the pattern in a fun way. Keep the theme going with playful twist. A couple of examples and a place for you to write how you will escalate your pattern in a fun way. Then bring it full circle. The ending connects back to the beginning or reinforces the lesson. So a couple of examples and then how will you bring yours back full circle? And there's additional ideas for brainstorming as well. So that is the conclusion of how to craft a best-selling picture book series, and I hope that this was helpful for you. I have spoken with many picture book editors, and picture book series are hot on most of their list right now. So I'm excited to see what you come up with. Feel free to reach out to me on social media and share your ideas. I would love to see if this was helpful to you. So I hope you're enjoying the rest of the conference and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me.